What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Owen Gifford Show. I'm your host, Owen Gifford, with episode 9. Not live, recorded from Denver, Colorado. And if you're just listening on Spotify, I have a new background that I like. I didn't feel like the black curtain was good enough popping to the eye. So now we have a sick new background. And if you're on YouTube, you can see it. And I want to start off the episode. Someone recently close to me said, Owen, why do you do your podcast if no one watches, no one cares? And I know that I only get 20 views per episode right now, but that is not why you do something. If you want to do anything in this life, if you want to be anything, you have to start from ground zero and work your way up. If you want to be a guitarist, if you want to be a stand-up comedian, you want to be a CEO, you are going to have to work for hours in the dark, hours and hours and hours and hours alone, producing something that no one even sees, no one even cares about, no one clicks on. You are going to have to work for a decade on whatever it is that you want to be. It is not about the attention at the beginning. And if you are doing something for the attention at the beginning of a project, you are so screwed. You are so fucked. You will never achieve anything in life if you cannot get through the alone period. The period of chasing any dream where you are grinding, you are working at something and no one cares and no one sees it and and it's probably cringy to the people that do. Because you're getting better. I've only done 9 episodes. If I had said that I was going to be a comedian, a stand-up comic after 9 episodes or 9 open mics, I would be crazy. 9 open mics, you don't even have a joke. You think you do, but you don't. It takes years and years and years. I'm 4 years into comedy, and I still don't even have 45 minutes, which is the standard to go on tour, to be a comedian, to be a touring comic. And I'm on my way. I've written some bangers of a joke, and I've gotten better. And I look back at the jokes that I wrote originally, and I see the growth that I've taken. It's the same way when I was playing college football. I looked back at my high school years, which I thought were successful at the time. You know, I was an all-state selection, captain of the team, and we had some success. And I looked back and I was like, oh, only if I had the information that I have now in college. Only if I had the information that I had college, I could have been even better. You can always get better. There is always a deeper hole to dig and a different detail to learn and something to shed from your past that is not a good habit. You can always get better. You can always get better. I was listening to Modern Wisdom, Chris Williamson, top 50 podcaster in the entire world. And his episode yesterday was lessons I learned from 1,200 episodes. 1,200 episodes to get to the top. That's what it took for him to get to the top. 1,200 episodes. And I looked back at one of his first episodes, and he was in his kitchen doing it with almost no equipment. It takes years and years and years to build a craft. Rogan's was the same. Rogan was clicking on his computer in his first episode with Redman, just talking about stupid shit, asking if he should post on his Twitter. And now he's like 1,500 episodes. And guess what? He's at the top. If you want to do anything, you have to be willing to push through the period in the beginning where no one cares and no one even thinks you're good. You shouldn't be doing it for the audience. You're doing it for yourself because this is what you want to do and this is what you feel pulled to. And this is what you want to spend your time on and time and energy on to build your craft. This is your craft. This is the thing that you choose to use the minimal time we have on this planet. That That's the important thing. I don't do this podcast for anybody other than I want to be a podcaster. And I love the listeners and I appreciate the listeners. And if you like, subscribe, follow, listen to one episode or any episodes, I appreciate you so sincerely to take your time to listen to the words that I have to speak. But I'm just saying, I do this because I've wanted to be a podcaster for a long time, and I overthought it for years and years and years. And then one day I finally pulled the trigger and I got up the courage to just press start and record. And the beginning is brutal, but you get better every time. I'm on episode 9, and the things that I've learned already are crazy. And if I get to episode 1200, I might be at the top. My odds will be certainly better. Certainly better. And if I don't, if something happens, but I did 1200 episodes, then I can say I did 1200 episodes of podcasting. And I can call myself a podcast producer. I can call myself a podcaster. I can call myself a creator because I did the thing. And doing means so much more than thinking. Actions always mean more than words. And in this case, the words are the action. But this is what I'm telling you. You got to take the step. And that just really, if you don't understand that at the beginning of anything that you have to grind and no one's going to care and you have to grind for years and years and years and years and years, if you don't understand that, you're fucked. You are fucked if you don't understand that you have to grind for years without anybody caring, but you have to keep getting better and you have to keep showing up every week for yourself and for your craft. That's my little starting rant to today. Chase whatever you're chasing and chase the fuck out of it, and no one's going to care probably, especially in the age of attention. In the age of attention, you're being pulled left, right, up, down every second you scroll, everything you do. Everybody's trying to get your attention, marketing, 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 marketing. So yeah, you're not going to get a lot of attention if nobody knows your name. So you got to build your name and you got to work from the bottom and you got to prove why people should give you their attention. You got to put something out into the world that someone is willing to spend their time on and listen to, and you have to get that attention. And even if it doesn't come, at least you ride the boat of hope. At least you did something with your time and you didn't just think about it. And you didn't worry about failing because everyone fails. Everyone at the top has failed. It's a failing upward. You fail upward. That's what you do. You fail upward. Well, thank you for listening to my rant. I was a little frustrated with my friend who said that nobody cares about my podcast. Not because I know that people don't care about my podcast right now. It's just you clearly don't understand that you got to grind for years. It's all about the grind. It's all about the grind. And even when you get to the top, people are still probably not going to care very much. That's why you got to love what you do. You got to do it for yourself. But today we have a banger of an episode. AI has been everywhere in the news. Absolutely everywhere. It's taking over everything. It's taking over college graduations where the speakers are getting booed, and it's taking over the military. It's in porn. If it's in porn in the military, that's where technology always hits first. It's in porn. It's in the military. It's the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apps on the app market, on apps on the App Store. It's being used in businesses all across the world. I went to Wendy's and the person taking the order was AI. I went to the movies and the parking was AI. AI is everywhere, but I don't want to talk about AI today. I want to talk about something human, something deeply human that I experienced in my past. It's a story of adventure, a story of healing, a story of growth, and a story of spirituality and spiritual awakening, and one of the most profound experiences of my life. Today, I'm here to talk about the time I traveled down to the Mexican jungle to take the most powerful psychedelic medicine that is known to mankind, 5-MeO DMT, which is known as the God molecule. It's produced in all of our brains. You've maybe heard about the third eye. It's released in our brains when we come into the world, when we're born, and it is again released in our brains when we die. It is that same chemical. It is in everything, all living things. It's in every plant, in every animal that lives on planet Earth. It is the most powerful medicine, spiritual medicine in the entire world. And I took it 3 times over 2 days in the Mexican jungle. And that is what we're going to talk about today. And it's a long story. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my experience. I'll try to make it interesting for you. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram at o.g.lol. All right, how did I get to this? I've always been a spiritual. I guess it starts from the beginning. I was raised in an agnostic family, belief of a higher power, but not necessarily believing in a certain religion. I've been to church a few times here and there, but I always had trouble with the hypocrisy of religion. The fact that religion was based on loving everyone, loving thy neighbor, but it produced the most wars. All of the wars were about religion in history, and it was a very homophobic endeavor, religion, very homophobic. And I just didn't believe, I saw the hypocrisy in the fact that loving thy neighbor is not war and hating someone who is different than you. And so I saw that from an early age, and I think a lot of highly educated people see that. And so for a period in my life, I kind of turned away from God, from religion. I said, I took that hypocrisy and I said, it's probably not true. There's a lot of hypocrisy. The stories are crazy. I kind of pushed it away. I went towards science and facts and what you could prove. And that's what I was drawn to for a period of my life. And then as I got older, I got into hiking and camping, and I started to develop a deep appreciation for nature, for Mother Earth, for spirituality. I realized that nature, there was something about nature that was truly spiritual, truly divine. And I started to believe there are higher powers. It doesn't mean that if you eat shellfish, you're going to burn in damnation for the rest of your life. That is not what I believed. But I believed there was something to connection and consciousness and nature that was bigger than me and bigger than humans. And then when I was around 19, 20, I started experimenting with mushrooms. You know, I'd heard from, I'm not a big drug guy. I was clean my whole life. I was clean until 18 years old, didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do anything. I dabbled with weed a little bit, drank a couple beers, never did anything harder than that. Still haven't done anything harder than that other than mushrooms and the medicine we're going to talk about today. And I found mushrooms and I took them and for the first time in my life, I felt ego dissolving. I felt my ego dissolve for the first time. I felt inner connection between my consciousness and the world, and I felt the lack of individuality, where I felt connection between all things for the first time. when I did psilocybin, and I felt euphoric, and I felt release of tension, and I felt real release from just suffering and pain, and I felt a release, like an understanding that, oh, this is bigger than me, and I don't have to worry as much. Do not fear. That's the most repeated phrase in the Bible, which is interesting because that is kind of what I felt through magic mushrooms. It was like, do not fear, live your life, relax. There's more to this than you will ever know or understand. Reality is not what everyone says, it is deeper and more uncomprehendable than anyone can even begin to describe. It is probably beyond the limits of the English language or any human language that is out there. And I felt a deep connection with nature when I was on the psilocybin. The trees felt like they were breathing and they were alive with me. And that's where it started. That's where my understanding that there is more to this world and there is something higher than us began. And I could be wrong, obviously. I probably am wrong, but this is what you have to believe in something, and this is what I believe. I believe that your actions do mean something. And I believe that love is the international, universal language. But this is where my understanding of spirituality started to expand, started to grow in my early 20s. And then I developed over my years, and I kept that understanding, and I stayed strong to the belief that all religions are kind of saying the same thing, and all of them there is something to love and being a good neighbor and do not steal, do not kill. All of those things, like the 10 Commandments, I do believe those are true. And even Buddhism and Taoism, where there's this understanding of consciousness, I believe that there is something higher. And I stuck to that in my mid 20s, where I really stuck to nature as the higher power. I would say I was one of those people that said the universe. And I have a stand up joke about this, that I'm one of those people that says I'm spiritual but not religious. But I don't really like that phrase though, because it's like saying the same thing to me. So instead of saying I'm spiritual but not religious, I just say, oh shit, bro, is 3 grams of mushrooms a lot? And that's where that joke originated, because all jokes come from truth. All good jokes come from truth. And I wanted to share that with an audience on stage. And that is that's where that originated. But this is where the origination of my um psychedelic exploration started, and just exploration of consciousness and the unknown, religion. This is where it all began. It began around 20 years old. I mean, it honestly began earlier than that, because I was raised in an agnostic family. I was raised in an agnostic family. So it kind of started from the beginning. And then I moved to Denver. I was taking the next step. I was going to be a comedian. I'd been doing it for a few years. I was like, I'm going to move to the big city. I'm talented. I'm sharp. I got 10 minutes. I'm going to take this world by storm. And then I immediately moved to Denver, and I felt a sharp pain in my back. A very familiar sharp pain that ran from my lower spine all the way down my left leg. A pain so incredible that it felt like someone was shocking me with electricity all day and night, 24/7. And I knew as soon as it happened that it was that familiar feeling from when I was 19, when I had my first back surgery, that I had herniated my disc again, a day that I knew would always come. Because when you have one back surgery, 80% of the time, it leads to another back surgery in the same area because that area is so much weaker now. Because all they do is cut it out. And so you have about 70% of your disc after the first surgery. And I felt it, and that is just the worst, horrifying feeling of like, oh no, not again. I have to go through this again. I have to fight this battle again. It was already the hardest thing I've ever been through, and now I have to do it again. And then I got the news that I had to get a spinal fusion surgery, which I was unaware was a thing. I would have to get my disc fully removed, put a replacement disc in, get 6 screws in my spine, and a metal rod would now be my lower spine. I would no longer be the natural human body that I came into this world with. I would be an advancement in modern technology that allows me to no longer be in pain and to have a back that will allow me to live an overall healthy and active life. And I'm grateful to that and to the surgeons that I had. And it took almost 6 months of constant pain whenever I walked, sat, anything. It would never go away. I was in constant, excruciating pain for 6 months before the surgery. And during that, I was in so much pain, my body even produced a kidney stone. So I had two of the most painful things a human can experience at the same time. Lightning sciatica down my leg constantly for 6 months, at the same time as having a kidney stone moving through my body through contractions because the pain is too great. The universe was teaching me pain. And there's a reason to that, and I'll get to that later. But the universe had to teach me pain, and I felt so much of it. I wasn't able to move. I wasn't able to travel. I wasn't able to do the things that I took for granted when I was healthy. And if you are healthy, travel, run, be physical, take care of your body, because health is literally the only important thing in this entire world. And then I got the surgery. I thought it would be the end of the pain. And it was the pain down my leg, the sciatica, that ended. But now I had the pain of a brand new spine. A fresh, intense back surgery where they drilled holes into my spine and cut a 6-inch diameter cut down my lower back that creates a nasty scar that makes it look like I have the world's longest butt crack. And that's when the pain started, and that's when the new journey started. And the first couple weeks after back surgery were some of the worst weeks of my entire life, some of the hardest weeks of my entire life. Doing basic things, walking down the hallway was a step inches at a time. And I remember taking my first steps after the back surgery and just feeling like my body is no longer the body that I came into this world with. It is now a combination of human ingenuity and the universe within my own body. And I remember taking those first steps and just saying, oh my God, I have so much farther to go. And then a couple of months went by and I started getting better slowly every single day. And by the way, I appreciate everyone, my family, that helped me get through this. Without them, I don't know where I would be. Truly takes a village. You cannot do this alone. You cannot do this life alone. You need the people that are in your corner because there's not going to be many of them. And if you have people in your corner, respect the fuck out of them and love them. And hopefully, when it's your turn to return the favor, you understand why you have to, why you need to do that. And a couple months went by, and I remember going on my first hike in Rocky Mountain National Park to a lake called Chasm Lake. It was about 4 or 5 months after my back surgery, 2,000 feet of elevation, Had to get up to 11,000 feet. And when I got to the top of one of the hardest hikes that I had to do, I've done, and I did it solo, it was one of the most beautiful views that I ever had seen. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm still going to be able to do the things that I love. I might not be able to run anymore. I might not be able to snowboard. I might not be able to be the athlete that I used to be, but I was gonna be okay, and I knew that after that. And from my back surgery, I physically was at a point where I was doing all right. Today, I'm doing pretty damn good. But at that point, I was physically at the point where I could live a normal life physically. But the pain from being in so much pain for 6 months, and then another 6 months after that, lingered within me. That trauma was in my mind. And when you have trauma, it stays there no matter, even if you aren't actively thinking about it, it is still there in the back of your mind. And while I was going through my injury, one of the things that I really felt like I lost was the ability to move, the ability to travel within this world. I wanted so badly to travel the world when I was injured and laying on a couch looking at a ceiling for 6 months. That's all I wanted to do was see the world and move and be able to use my body to travel through space and time within this planet and meet people from different cultures and experience different cultures and travel around the world. And that is what I desired most when I didn't have it, when it was taken away. And so I'm living in Denver. It has a great airport that has many conspiracies connected to it. And I bought a cheap flight to Tulum, Mexico. I got an Airbnb, and it's just cheaper than, most cities in America. It was a quick flight, quick 3-4 hour flights, and I was gonna go down to Mexico for a couple days, 4 or 5 days, and travel and experience, because I was not able to do that for a long time. And so I headed down to Mexico about 6 months after my back surgery, and I landed in Tulum. And I could instantly feel when you land in the Tulum airport, which is about 45 minutes outside of Tulum, you come into a new world. And I've traveled the world, I know how it is, but you come into a world that you realize you are not familiar with. Everything around you is in Spanish. All the people are speaking Spanish. All the people are Spanish people, with the exception of tourists. There were also tourists from all over the world. I remember stepping out into the warm jungle climate and getting on a bus and trying to figure it out if there were assigned seatings or not. And I remember I sat next to this German woman who didn't speak either didn't speak English or pretended not to speak English. And then to the right of us was another American, and then there was someone from the Netherlands and two Russians. All young adults doing the same thing, traveling the world, experiencing different cultures. And then I pulled into Tulum, and I spent the next couple days seeing the Mayan ruins, which were beautiful, and so crazy how small of an area. All this history that happened throughout, important history that happened within the Mayan culture, which was far advanced beyond its time, happened in such a small courtyard type of vibe. And I could feel the presence. When you walk into a place and you can feel the events that have happened there, it had a real presence within it. I went to some cenotes, ate some tacos, some great street tacos, and walked around the beautiful city of Tulum. And then by happenstance, I'd been interested in ayahuasca my whole life, or since hearing about it. People that I trusted said it was very beneficial and something that is more powerful than you'll ever experience. And so one day I happened to just go on the internet because I knew that ayahuasca was legal in Mexico, and I'd always wanted to do a spiritual retreat. And I came across something called Bufo Alivarius. It was the Bufo Alivarius Sanctuary in Tulum, Mexico, which happened to be right down the street from the Airbnb that I picked by happenstance. And I'd always wanted to do one of these spiritual journeys that I'd heard of. I'd wanted to go down to Peru and maybe test out ayahuasca and I know that that sounds crazy, but if you understood the spiritual world, you'd understand that ayahuasca is it's a medicine. Everybody loops it under a drug, but it's very much a medicine. And I found this Bufo Alivarius sanctuary and I did some digging that it was similar to ayahuasca, but it was the chemical 5-MeO DMT from the Bufo, from the, which is called Bufo, from the, I think it's the, let me check. It's from a desert toad, which I know is so crazy. The Sonoran Desert toad. It comes from the secretion of the Sonoran Desert toad, and people have been using this medicine within the Central American jungle and all over the world as a spiritual medicine for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. For thousands of years. This was used as a spiritual medicine to basically pick up the phone and have a conversation with the universe. Not actively, it's not an actual conversation, it's more of an understanding, or that's how it was described. And I did some more research and watched some documentaries on 5-MeO DMT, the God molecule. And I also did some research on the Bufo Alivarius Sanctuary, and I realized, and it was a very legitimate thing. And I decided that I was in Mexico for a reason, and I had just experienced so much pain and so much trauma that I often asked myself why. I was finding myself asking the universe why I was going through so much pain at such a young age when it felt like everyone else was not going through things that were so hard, which is obviously untrue that everyone goes through something difficult and is always going through something difficult. But this was my time. I had to go through that pain to lead me to this moment, to this sanctuary, to take this 5-MeO DMT, which I know sounds crazy. So I walked down the street and I walked into the sanctuary and I met the nice people who worked there and I booked a session for the next morning. I walked through they kind of walked me through the whole place. And they had such an understanding of why I was there. And I booked a session for the next day. Before I tell you about my experience, I just want to tell you about 5-MeO DMT. So it's a powerful, naturally occurring compound found in the venom of the Sonoran Desert toad and various plants too. It's different from ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is much longer. It's legal in Mexico and it's been used by ancient Mayan and other cultures for many, many years. It is given by shamans who deeply respect the compound. Here is a description on the website of the Bufo alvarez sanctuary of it. 5-MeO-DMT, also known as the God molecule, is an endogenous neurotransmitter of the human brain. When our brain receives a sufficient amount of the medicine, it is configured in advanced mode. We experience an absolute dissolution of the ego. The sense of individuality is completely lost, and all the barriers that separate us from all other essences dissolve, merging for a few minutes with the source of all energy and consciousness in the universe, leading to a feeling of having absolute inner peace and gratitude for life. And when you're reading that before doing it, you're like, oh my God, that is some powerful stuff. Is that what's going to happen to me? Is that what I'm going to experience? Extreme dissolving of the ego? What if I don't want my ego to dissolve? I need my ego. I love being Owen Gifford. I love being me. I love being human. I don't want that to go. And there are those thoughts. But the fact that it had been a medicine and people that I respected had done it before and said it was one of the most beautiful things they'd ever done, and I had gone through the pain, I needed to understand why I had been through so much pain. And that's really the root of all this, is understanding why I was going through so much pain. And so I showed up the next morning and I, nervous as hell, I walked through the doors and I said, hey, I'm the appointment for today. And I walked into this beautiful sanctuary in the jungle of Mexico in Tulum, right in Tulum. There's beautiful jungle vines and trees all around you, and there's pools of crystal clear water running all around that you can lounge in and swim. There were people lounging and swimming around the sanctuary because you can stay there for $22 a night, which is great. And all around me as I sat there, they sat me down and said, here, wait for your shamans. They'll be here in a second. And as I was looking around, there were these muscular, Mayan-looking warrior-type men. They were working out with dumbbells made out of trees. Like, the ends of them were made out of wood. They were jumping rope, and they looked like the most badass people that I have ever experienced in my life. And I was like, those must be my shamans. One of the shamans, those are some badass people. And then a guy hurriedly ran. I'm not joking. This is exactly what happened. A skinny white guy ran past me holding his hand over his mouth, like he was like someone does when they're throwing up in their mouth. And he rushes past me, runs into the bathroom, which was to my right, and immediately loudly vomits into the bathroom, into the toilet. And I was like, what is going on here? Did that guy just take 5-MeO? Is that what is going to happen to me? And he comes out and he's like, yeah, you shouldn't, don't drink the water. He said, I thought I'd be all right just drinking a little bit, but it turns out I was not. And apparently he had drank a little bit of water because he believed that he'd been living in Mexico enough to where he could handle it, and he immediately threw up. You cannot drink the water in Mexico. So this was a wild start to my experience. An absolutely wild start to my experience. And I later learned that this guy that had gone past me was originally going to be my shaman for my experience that I was about to do, for my Bufo experience. And I started talking to him, and his name was Keith from Florida. Classic. He'd been administering the medicine for for years, but Keith from Florida doesn't really sound like a shaman. Keith from Florida sounds more like someone who's going to give you bath salts at Disney World. And I just thought that was so funny. And then, so he went away, and I was like, what is going on? And then minutes later, a beautiful Australian woman walked up to me, and she just had the nicest accent and was such like a beautiful woman with such pure energy. You could tell it was just radiating off her. And she said, sorry about that," and said that that was Keith. He was one of the shamans here. He was originally scheduled to work with me because I'm from America. He's from America, and usually they match us. But obviously he's sick, so he's going to not be doing it. And stepping in would be the head of the sanctuary. The head of the sanctuary. And she started talking to me about intentions, which I didn't even know I was supposed to come in with a set of intentions that you're supposed to think about when you're doing this medicine. Because I was kind of going in blind. I was just led by the pull of life to this moment. And I said, I'm not really sure. I'm just trying to find a deeper meaning in life, kind of understand pain and like why I had gone through that. So then she led me through the sanctuary to a tent. It's like a teepee tent. And I took off my shoes and then I spread my arms, and she burnt a sage and moved it all around me and cleansed my energy. My heart was racing. I didn't really know what I was getting into. And then I stepped inside the tent. And inside the tent, there were these rugs all over the floor and pillows. And there was some water. And inside was my shaman, who I now know runs the place. And if you ever hear Mike Tyson talk about Bufo doing Bufo, this is where he did it. There's pictures of Mike Tyson around the sanctuary when you walk in. So the shaman in there was one of the badass guys that was working out. Not to say that Keith from Florida isn't a badass. I later learned he was a badass, but it was just funny that my first experience, he like threw up right in front of me. And I walked into this tent, and I sat down. They said, "Do I have any questions?" And I said, "Not necessarily." They said, "You have to have an intention going into it." And so my first intention was to understand, like, I just want to know something deeper. Like, what deeper is going on here? And then when it was time to get ready, he got it out of this little box, and it only lasts 15 minutes. And he pulled it out of this box, and I sat in the middle of this tent, and it began to rain. I was sitting in the Mexican jungle, and as I was about to step into a deeper spiritual place that I have never been into, it began to rain as if it was perfect, or the universe saying hi. The universe saying, I'm ready to talk, I'm ready to chat. And so to my left was the beautiful Australian woman, and to the right was the Mayan warrior shaman. And they started lighting it, and they said, repeat after me. And I spoke these words that I have this postcard in front of me. The thing you say before you do it is, Mother Earth, Great Spirit, infinite beings of light, I am asking for your presence to fill this space, my body, my mind, and my soul, to allow me to be a clear, open channel for infinite love, light, and wisdom, for my own healing and that of others. and for the healing of Mother Earth. Peace on earth begins today from within me. I will relax, trust, release, and allow infinite love to enter me. Home. And I repeated that, and they lit with this little tube that looked uh, like a pipe, like a bowl you smoke weed out of, and they lit it. And I inhaled deeply. And as soon as you inhale, they say, your shaman and the facilitator say, trust, 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 trust. And as soon as it hits you, you realize, oh, this is something more powerful than I have ever felt in my entire life. And I thought that I had fucked up. I thought that there was no going back from this moment. And the world started to vibrate, and I fell into this place of pure euphoric nothingness. There was no ego. There was no self. There was no time. There was no space. It was just pure love and energy and acceptance and just pure. It was purity. It's beyond human explanation of what it feels like. It feels like your body is just being released of all things, all trauma. And it's just like this deep, deep understanding of love and life and nature. And it really feels like you're getting a hug from Mother Earth in the center of the universe. And it's like, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. That's really the message you get. But you aren't even there. I don't even totally remember. You are not even there. It's like going back to the center of the universe, of all things that have ever been, will be, or is now, which I know sounds crazy. It was truly so profound. And then I felt myself kind of slipping back into my ego. I felt myself, hey, like I'm here, I'm starting to get here. And I felt myself somewhere. I remember being like, I got to go back. I got to go back. I got to see my family. I got to see my friends. I got to go back. I got to go back to earth, to myself, to my body. Because I was in a place of total inconnection and total non duality with all living things and all that is. And I'm not saying I'm special. Anyone who does this will feel this. And then I came back into my body and I opened my eyes and I saw the beautiful Australian woman and my shaman. And I just felt pure euphoria and joy that I was alive. I was back in my own body. I was me again. And I just remember it just being so intense and just laying there looking up at the teepee as it rained. And I asked how much time had gone by because there was no time where I was. And they said 15 minutes. And that was just crazy. I just had the most profound experience that I will ever have in a matter of 15 minutes, and it felt infinite. And I just remember feeling like we are all connected, everything is connected. And that was kind of the message that I got from it. And they said, welcome back. And I saw their, and they just said, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. You've done this many times before and many lifetimes before, which was crazy. And I just, it was so profound. It was so spiritual. It was so deeply human and deeply just alive. I felt so grateful to be alive. I felt like all my pain and all the things that I hold were just released. And then funny enough, usually when this happens, your body has a reaction. Your body moves uh, uncontrollably because you aren't even there, but your outside body is releasing things within you that you don't even know. So a lot of people have to like you have to be with someone trusted. The shaman has to be very trusted because they have to move you around and put pillows under you. There's videos on YouTube if you want to see what it's like. And he said that I hadn't moved very much. I hadn't really said much, which is interesting. And I'm not a very talkative guy. I'm very quiet, not very reactive. So that was interesting. But he said, I think you can go deeper. And I had just had the most crazy experience of my life, like the most profound thing that I've ever experienced. I was like, that was more intense than anything that is even possible. And he was like, I don't think you got enough, man. I don't think you did enough. I think you let it out a little bit too early. He said, do you want to go again? He said, I think you should go again. And we did it again. We repeated the prayer, and I went back under, and again I went, and every single time it's like peeling back an onion. It's different, and I don't totally remember. I just remember again I went back to the place where it's kind of like white light, where it's just like an infinite void of pure love. It's kind of like going to a void of pure love that's so real and so powerful. And it's like the only explanation is that it could be like the creator of all. And I went back to that place and there was no me, there was no time, there was no space, there was only infinite love and power and beauty and interconnection between all things. And then once again, I snapped back and I was like, oh my God, that was crazy. And all I could do was lay there. And the only thing I wrote, they give you a little pen and paper. And the only thing I wrote down is that we are all connected. And I got up and he said, do you want to do it again? I think you could benefit from doing another one. It seems like you're handling this well, but I still don't think you went deep enough. And just to be told that you haven't gone deep enough when you are literally experiencing the most profound and deep thing that you have ever experienced was just crazy. And at that point, it was just too much. It was just too much. It was too deep. And I felt like I had gotten a lot and I had gone to some beautiful places. And I just said, I can't do it anymore. I think I'm done. And the shaman, he looked pretty disappointed. He knew that I could heal more. There was more healing within me to do. Um, and then he said, if you want to come back tomorrow and do it, uh, I will be here and we can do this again. And so I went home and I thought about this powerful, powerful experience. And I can now smell the DMT within all plants, which is something that happens after taking 5-MeO, is I could smell it within all things. And I was just so grateful to be alive and be human and be experiencing and being myself. Because you're instantly back in your body after 15 minutes. You are instantly like, oh, I know I'm me. I'm back to my old self. And they call it being reborn because you kind of have this understanding like, oh, we are all connected after that. And that's why they call it a reborn. It's like the universe is just one big thing that comes that is all interconnected between all things. Whether you believe that or not, that's what it really feels like. And then I went back, long story short, I went back the next day, and my boy Keith from Florida was the one who did it this time. And they said, you really got to have an intention. You got to really like hold in your breath, do it so you really get the full experience. Like at this point, I had already thought that I had the full experience because it was so powerful and so profound. I was like, okay. And then, so I went in with the intention of loving myself because I'd been through so much pain and like, it's hard mentally to live in America right now. I've had my, not I wouldn't say necessarily depression, but I've had my issues with sadness and depression and anxiety and those things in my life. And I went into it this time with the intention of like, because apparently you're supposed to have intention when you go in to this deeply spiritual place. So with this time, I had the intention of loving myself and finding true love for myself. And so I did it, and it was the Australian woman again, and now Keith, and we went through the prayer, same tent. I really pulled in my breath and held it for as long as I possibly could. And as I faded back into the euphoric, endless love, she was just saying, trust, 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 trust exists, trust. And I felt, and I went deep. I went deep, deep, deep this third time, deeper than I thought I could. And I just went to a place of complete, like nothing, no time, no space, no nothing, just, and it was just gone. Like there was no anything there. And then I snapped back and I realized that the 5-MeO, the toad, the universe, whatever I was communicating with, took me to a place of absolute nothingness because I had such an appreciation for living. Once you feel nothingness, you have such an appreciation for living. I just was alive. I was just like, oh my God, I'm alive. I'm alive. Like it was so beautiful. And it was just, I just felt this profound love for myself and all living things and all just the consciousness, like the ability to live. Um, and that was a terrifying place to go. But I had to, I mean, sometimes you had to feel pain and you have to suffer and you have to go to terrible places in order to be taught lessons. And I was really being taught by the universe the lesson of loving yourself by being taken away. Because when you take yourself away, you're like, oh, I love my life. I love living. I love existing. There are some nasty things about this world, but there are some very beautiful things, being loved by someone else, loving someone else, animals, puppies, nature. There's so many good things in this world. Um, and then it took me a while to for the next couple months I would smell 5-MeO DMT in all plants and everything around me. And I didn't totally remember, and I don't totally remember. I just remember the feeling of interconnection and love and the appreciation for life and living and consciousness. And that's kind of really what I pulled from it. And then over the next, I would get dreams and I would kind of feel it and go back a little bit in my dreams. And then over the next like year, they talk about integration because you kind of have this like, oh, this such big, profound experience. You kind of just want to like get on your soapbox and tell the world, which I know is ironic because I'm doing this in a podcast, but I just wanted to shake everybody and be like, you're alive, you're alive, you're alive. Like, oh my God, we're all connected. Everything is connected. I just wanted everyone to know it's possible to have a deeper understanding of consciousness. And then over time, I've realized that a lot of people, one, don't want that. They ignorance is bliss in some ways, and also everyone is on their own timeline and their own journey. Um, I got to a place early when I was 26. I got to that spiritual awakening place, and I got there because I had to go through some serious pain to get there and to level up. And I don't know. I obviously don't have all the answers. This could obviously just be a drug that did this thing, but I'm telling you, this is one of the most spiritual things, this is the most spiritual thing you can possibly do, is to take the God molecule. And I'm not going to do it again for a long time until it calls me back. I had a time at that time in my life, I had a reason to do it. I had a reason to go to that place, and I just had to understand why I had been in so much pain. And I really developed a understanding of the spiritual world and interconnection between all living things and nature. And at the end of the day, my advice is just live your life, love the people you love, appreciate life. All the things that, all the basic things of religion, they say that I agree with all those things. Just live your life, live a good life. Don't be a dick, and you'll be all right. And obviously, I don't know any more than any other person, and I don't know what happens when we die. I don't know if there's an afterlife. All I know is that I truly believe there is a deep interconnection between all things, and there is love is a very serious universal language. And if I had to guess what is going on after all of my spiritual experiences, I kind of see it as like the world is this one big pool of energy, similar to, I put it into words like with the water cycle. It's like the energy is like the ocean. It's just like one big pool of energy, and then you get sucked up, evaporated up to the clouds, and then you rain down as one individual droplet, and that individual droplet is your life. And then once you hit the water that is dying, and you return to the eternal energy of all things. And that is kind of what I believe now, but obviously, I think everyone should believe what they want to believe and what they do believe, because I'm just a guy. But yeah, after, I mean, these powerful psychedelics, they help me understand that, you know, um, maybe death is just an illusion, and all energy cannot be destroyed or created. It is just transferred to a different state. So maybe that is what happens with us, is our energy transfers, or we just are all one interconnected thing. I don't know. Just live your life. I guess some other things that are interesting that happened within it was they were very serious on intention, and very, very heavy on manifestation. Like, manifestation is real. They kept telling me, like, manifestation, your thoughts are energy that go out into the world, and they do influence consciousness, which is a big idea. So if you're meditating, if you're doing something, just put your intentions towards something that you would like, and don't say I want $1 million. Just say I have health and I'm grateful for that. You have to have it. The universe, I've heard, only understands saying yes. So you're like, if you want to be rich, you have to say I have money, not I want money. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is deep. This spiritual world, this human experience, this understanding of consciousness. It's deeper than we can ever imagine. And I really appreciate you listening. And hopefully, you don't think I am a nut, because it was one of the most beautiful, profound spiritual things that I have ever experienced. And I appreciate you for listening. Thanks.